the most important musical contribution for games is to creating this signature sound. When you hear the music, you know, oh, this is Fallout.
The other thing that I try to tell people is to fail faster. When we're starting out, we create things that we know are not that great.
Right.
Until you get to the point where you go, that's pretty decent.
I arrived here to the United States in 1990 just to actually be a jazz pianist. Mm-hmm. And but very, very soon I've discovered the sound that I'm looking for, which is like scoring overall. So I was actively looking to score stuff, and the first thing that I did was like student films, and things just led to another. I remember that I scored one student film that actually made it very nicely to Sundance Film Festival. So I started to know people, and then I got acquired because people heard my music to work on these TV shows. But I think that the main break in my life happened in '96 when I got a strange phone call from an agent that says like, hey, we have some computer games, would you like to score? And I said no. And that was pretty much the end of it. But I was really lucky because he was very, persistent. And he kept on calling me. I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance. And I did, and since then I never looked back.
Yeah, similar to you. I mean, I guess jazz brings us, kind of together, and then we discover so many other things. But I came here for college. I went to Berkeley in 1999, moved to LA afterward, and I started working as an assistant. I knew that I wanted to write for film or TV. I ended up discovering games. That was also a thing that I could do. But like you said, you go from playing with in ensembles and I used to hang out at orchestra rehearsals and sit in the different sections and find out how the instruments work, and my friends would be kind enough to let me grab their instrument and kind of see how it worked. And
right.
Anyways, that all kind of led to being here working as an assistant at Remote Control for Steve Jablonski as his tech initially. And then the first thing that I ever wrote was on a TV show that he did called Desperate Housewives, which was on TV for 8 seasons, which doesn't happen anymore.
Well, yeah, that's right, actually. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to go from to kind of vary the super tight TV schedule to having more time on the video game stuff, and it just kind of puts your brain in a different wavelength. Like you and I were talking earlier about just how video game stuff is a lot more melodic, and it's just more broad. You don't really have that luxury of time.
Exactly.
In TV, you do 20-second cues, 50-second cues, so there's very little time for you to develop anything. So getting to do the video game stuff is very satisfying, where you go, okay, I'm gonna make this into a thing. It's gonna be 4 minutes long, and then we get to record it.
Yeah, that's true. Also, basically, the development time, TV versus computer games is just like, it's a huge difference, because TV, you just need to do it now. Mm-hmm. And for computer games, you're just growing up with the game. I think Fallout 4, I started 2 years before. Fallout 76, again, 2 years before. Elder Scrolls Blades, again, a year before. Many games that I'm doing, like the bigger games, I will always start way before, and it just takes time to, sort of like come up with a style and the signature that is so important in games. Really, I think the most important musical contribution for games of music is to creating this signature sound. Like, for example, Fallout has this specific signature sound that when you hear the music, oh, this is Fallout. And other games. So this is basically where I spent a lot of time.
That's definitely a skill that I haven't been able to explore, because you came on as the guy who was going to create the sound, I came on to Destiny 2 with the sound already being established, working with other composers. So I had to adapt to their style, which is, I guess partly also a skill to go, oh, this is what you've done. Let me figure out a way to adapt to what you've done and also make it interesting for me.
And add some of your stuff. But I mean, like for example, in Elder Scrolls Blades, I had to adjust to the music that previously was written for Elder Scroll, but then again, give it my own twist. It's almost more challenging for me than to create everything. I'm working right now on two very, very big titles that are a first, like it's, so on both of them, I basically, like in Fallout or in Dragon Age, for example, I created, sort of like the musical signature. And I must say that, yes, it's fun, but it's so much work, and so much back and forth. I mean,
it's a lot of pressure, and what's interesting, what you were saying about you sort of get to grow up with the game is really, really cool, right? Because you're growing with, as the game is growing and changing, because everything is just so dynamic all the time.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of cool. You get to marinate with everybody else within the, so they get to grow up with your music as much as you get to grow up with the game.
Exactly. And I remember, I think it was in Fallout 4 when I started working on it, I think, even more than 2 years before the game came. And it was just concept. So actually, when I was writing the music, there was only concept art and stuff. So they played my music to the artists there.
Well, that's great.
And then they sent me their ideas, and then so all this interactivity within the team in games is really, really cool because you get to influence, and you get to really, like you said, to grow with.
Yeah, that's something that does not happen on TV. It's like, okay, we got a week, you got to write, 30 minutes of music or whatever it is, and you just kind of throw stuff at them, and a lot of it is also dictated by deadlines, right? So it's like, is this going to work? Yes, it works, and then eventually that thing becomes the sound of the show. But you don't have the time to experiment and go, how about we try this or that? There's just no luxury of time for that kind of thing.
Totally. No, I get it because I remember in my old time in Fox Family Channel, we had to turn in 2 episodes a week.
Oh boy.
So that basically had to, I had to compose almost 8 minutes a day.
Oh, geez.
Because there was not a lot of music editing done, so it's just everything to picture, and of course it was wall-to-wall music. Yeah. Every episode was 22 minutes, and you have to cover 22 minutes, so think about it, 44 minutes a week.
Oh, that's a lot of music. What I like about the challenge of TV, though, is that you don't have time to doubt yourself.
That's actually really true.
So you have an idea and you got to make it work.
Exactly.
There's no time to change it and mess around with it.
So totally true. And I must say, I even though I was not crazy about these, really slavery and enslaving it so hard and don't have time to think, but it really taught me to compose fast. Mm-hmm. And to be very, very versatile with virtual instruments and with, everything as far as setup and palettes and orchestral palettes and synth palettes and everything. So, you could just jump in, write, and it helps me until today.
Right.
Most of the time, things are so secretive. The video game industry is phobic when it comes to because video gamers, and there are obviously tens and millions of them, are so savvy when it comes to computers and they're all the time online and they're searching, and it's just, you could go to their studios and play the game there. They will never send a game to you, and even pictures and stuff, no. So I never really test the game. I have to rely on the audio director to tell me all right, this is working great. Toward the end of the project, I said, all right, I believe you, but I really want to come over and spend like 2 or 3 days with you, just going over all the game and see that it's really working. I think it's important to do, but the rest of the thing, I'm just here.
Yeah, same. I mean, they're so protective of their IP, and you know, unless you're working on site at the video game company, which you know doesn't really happen that often, you don't really get to see anything. They give you dribs and drabs of, you know, what they kind of want, and then they just go, all right, good luck with that. You know?
Exactly. And then they will call fixes, and they will give you, criticism and stuff, and you will have to understand that this is got to be true because they see it in front of the game.
Right.
So they know what works and what doesn't, so you'll just follow orders. Today, I think I have already about 20 to 25 my own libraries. There are mini libraries that I've recorded either myself, like banging on stuff or scratching stuff or playing stuff but badly, or recording orchestras and converting it into contact libraries. This is essential, I think, for every composer to have this kind of sound, because it really helps to really make the signature of the actual composer, not even the game, but the signature of the composer. Oh, I think that this is a sound of Inon Zur. I remember like that I did like a trailer for a new game that it will come later on, you know, and stuff. And people on the internet already says like, oh, I recognize, you know, I think it's going to be, you know, and stuff. And on one hand, it's like, you know, you're not supposed to say it, you know. But on the other hand, it's really, really good that after so many years, you could say like, all right, so I think I have a style, I think I have a sound. And even though I am like really going between projects as far as the styles, there is some like underline going that is like the style.
Yeah, you know, again, getting back to the deadline thing, I don't have that luxury in TV, but I try to do that. I don't have 20 libraries. I have maybe 20 sounds that maybe you record throughout. There's also sort of happy accidents that happen where,
oh, I love these happy accidents.
Yeah.
That's my most of like in any composition that I'm doing, there is a happy accident. Like, oh, that sounds good.
It's like, oh, that's a thing, and then you kind of make it into a thing, and then it becomes you know, part of the. It's like, oh, that's the bad guy sound, or whatever it is. Or,
oh yeah.
But it's also just, you know, takes you out of this environment to just kind of grab a recorder and grab a flute or grab a fork and a pan and just make something, you know, just move actual air rather than just using samples. You know, there's something some magic that happens when that occurs when you move molecules around. You know?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally agreed. It really depends on the project. Like, for example, like if it's like more of a classical orchestral sound, then I'd really put a lot of pressure on the company to record live orchestra. Some other projects that are more sound designish, like Fallout, for example, I think most of the recording, except of like maybe main theme and other big, that we actually did in my recording room, because I could fit like 10 people here. And that's enough. So sometimes soloists, something, as long as, like Peter said, as long as you have something that is pushing air and that is sort of like bringing some human touch to the score, no matter what, it really helps.
So when you do orchestra, do you conduct? Do you like to conduct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, for example, for a project that is coming out this summer, I went to Budapest in October, and I conducted them for 8 hours. But I mean, sometimes when it's like shorter, I will just do a remote session from here. But I really, really love to conduct overall. And not only that, I really think that is important, because some of the taste and the energy cannot be really communicated in words. And if you're capable enough to stand on the podium and just give your touch, you know, and your take on as a composer, it just works better.
Yeah, there's certainly something that happens when you communicate directly with them. And, besides the magic of being in front of the orchestra, there's something that's lost between you being in the control room talking to the conductor and the conductor talking to the musicians.
Yes.
Not to mention, I prefer to talk to them directly rather than relay a message. That doesn't really work for me. I want to be with them and look at their faces and say, hey, let's try this. Or when they talk to me and say, hey, why don't we try it this way? I mean, there's really something about producing a session that way, where you get the best performance out of the people that are in the room by making them feel part of what you're doing. They're making your music come alive, and it makes you go, oh, that's what that's supposed to sound like.
Exactly.
When it leaves this room.
The whole interaction between the conductor, who is also the composer, and the orchestra just gives it like a whole new level and layer that, I think sometimes gets lost, lost in translation.
Yes,
let's put it this way.
Yeah. And I mean, what's better than standing in front of 60 people? It's amazing.
Right.
It's great. It's beautiful.
It's pretty powerful. Yeah. I am not using an assistant composers. If there is cue or part or even a whole score that I think that this is not my style, then I'm just not going to take the project. Or if, for example, there is one cue inside, a whole project that is totally out of my, style, then I will invite a composer, but not as an assistant composer, but as a contributor composer. He will get a full credit. He will get everything, and he's going to basically get credit for what he or she did, as a same level composer, basically. It's not that I don't believe in assistant composers, or there's the whole Hollywood system is based on that, and apparently it works. Works very well, especially for the main composers. But maybe it's because my mentality, which is a little bit more old-fashioned, and plus video games has more time. I would like really to, give my own voice every time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I don't know if you ever did writing for other people.
No, I never did.
Yeah, so that, I've done a lot of that.
Right.
What I like, I do prefer to write most of the stuff that I do. I mean, I've been working mostly in TV. It's a little bit different, so sometimes the deadlines are so tight that you do need to hire somebody, but I'm like you, I prefer to give them, pay them properly, give them the credit that they deserve. There is also something about, similar to recording live musicians, there's something about bringing somebody on and having them do a take on your music, and it kind of makes you go, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about doing it that way. So there's something kind of cool and collaborative about bringing somebody else on. So I've only just started doing it, and it's kind of fun because we're stuck in these rooms for so long with so little interaction. It's kind of nice to go, hey, what are you doing? What does that sound like? Send it to me.
Sometimes the company just doesn't have a budget whatsoever.
Right.
But they come to me and it's like, well, how can we make it work? One of the things, since I'm a composer, but I'm also owner of my company, I have to make things work. It almost never happened, but rarely that they come to me and it's just like, look, we're young, we're ambitious, we know that at some point we'll be really, really, successful. Here's our projects and I really like it. We don't have money. So what I do is I will write maybe the main theme or something, and then I will hire a composer to basically work within their budget's constraint, but then I will stay on it and make sure that it's up to the level that I appreciate. However, I make it very, very clear that this is not my music, and this is his music or her music, and this is what they do. And my only responsibility will be to make sure that it's up to par quality-wise, and and that's it. But there's, this is how I prefer to work. I mean, I must tell you that having a family is a huge motivator because because you need to provide, and if you want to stay in the business and to actually make money, from it, this is this is the motivation. No doubt. I mean, you're competing, and I'm a competitive person, anyways. So for me, competition is something that really works for me.
I'm competitive mostly with myself. I'm competitive in terms of me wanting to be better than I was yesterday. As as a father, as a husband, as a composer, as an athlete. I mean, those are big air quotes. But the other thing that motivates me, or that I try to tell people, is to a quote from my friend AJ, who says to fail faster. And I think we talked about this at Soundtrack Cologne a couple of years ago, is to just start and know that you're going to fall and just try to get up. I was listening to Ira Glass yesterday, and one of the things that he was saying is that one of the things that drives the creative people like you and I, anybody else that's creative, whatever medium, is we have good ideas of what's good, of what we like. And we try to, when we're starting out, we create things that we know are not that great. We have to know that things are not going to be great when we start. They're going to be pretty awful. But the idea of how they're supposed to be is still there. So you have to kind of cling to that and go through this process of things being really awful until you get to the point where you go, that's pretty decent. I'm sort of at the point where deadlines really help to define, like, okay, that's good enough for me to let go, because otherwise you would never release it. But I don't know if I will ever get to the point where I go, that's really good, because that would be incredibly arrogant. So I use it as a motivator to try to get better to whatever the next thing is. Every cue that I write is hopefully better than the last one.
Totally true. I mean, again, I know people that are so, perfectionist, and there's like, oh, we could make it better. But at some point we need to just like, and I don't like the slogan, but this is good enough. And sometimes things that are good enough for us are pretty amazing for other people, because the self-criticism that we have is so, strong. Take enough time, but put yourself boundaries. Now, as far as motivation goes, I would say, like, unless your body, your spirit, your whole self tells you that this is the only thing that you could do in life, then don't choose it. It's tough, it's very competitive, but if you're able to bring it to life, I don't think that there is something that is more gratifying than this.
And I'm going to add to that, so the umbrella of, there's a lot of different ways to be a composer, right? So there's a lot of ways to reach the goal. What kind of composer do you want to be? And that changes as you're moving through your career.
Totally.
For example, I'm working with a friend of mine who's an opera singer. She has an opera company in New York, and I'm starting to do things that I'm learning to write an art song for her, and I have no idea what I'm doing. But again, I have to go through this process of it being really kind of terrible to being okay, to somebody going, no, that's okay, just leave it. It's good where it is now, and then kind of move on to the next thing.
Yeah, the evolution of always allow yourself to evolve, always look for new places and fields to conquer, and I think this is good enough motivation.
You can buy a Mac and you can get GarageBand, right? And to me,
I mean, people could work on GarageBand. It's just really depends. I mean, yeah, you could still work on GarageBand.
The thing is, my point is that it doesn't matter what it is that you use. Just start with something. You can get something. You can get an app on your phone. I'm sure. I haven't really looked into it, but I'm sure you can get something on your phone. You can get something on your iPad that's very inexpensive. Just start. Start with something and make it work.
Yeah.
And then you move on to the next thing. I don't know if there's something specific that I would recommend.
Totally.
The only thing I'd recommend is just get started.
Exactly. Thank you, Orchestral Tools, for all your amazing work for us. I must admit that this is one of the libraries that I like the most, and I'm using it quite a lot.
Getting back to what you were saying about inspiring sounds, that definitely, getting into some really well recorded samples
helps
a lot, and you guys do a phenomenal job at that.